My name is Nate. I am a pharmacist at a community specialty Walgreens here in Memphis, Tennessee. Been with the Walgreens company for just over a decade now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Josh. I'm from Nashville. I am newly, really like living in the past, 5, 6, 7 years with HIV.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kathy. I live in Las Vegas. I work as a community liaison in the HIV arena. I've been diagnosed since 1995, and I have 2 dogs.
Hello, my name is Adam. I've been HIV positive for 9 years, and I'm a nurse in Baltimore, and I work in oncology now.
So, John, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am 62 years old, and I was diagnosed with HIV probably around 1988, 1989, somewhere in that area. So I've been positive for a good number of years.
We really appreciate you guys being here with us today. We kind of have a little bit of a conversation about things. So I've got a few little prompts and things like that I'll kind of shoot to you guys. And kind of the first one is just, can you tell us a little bit about when you sort of found out your status and kind of what that day was like?
I had been sick for a couple months and was having night sweats, and just a rash was all over my body, and I knew that I was sick, and I feared it was HIV, but I was hoping that it was not. In fact, when I got tested and I was waiting for the results to come back, they actually ended up losing my results, so I had to wait another 2 weeks or so or not even 2 weeks, but just another week or so to get the second set of results back. So the waiting game was horrible. I also felt very sick, and I had a lot of sadness and anxiety and shame around that diagnosis.
I can relate to the sadness, anxiety, and shame. When I was diagnosed, it was just prior to the protease inhibitor era. So all I knew about HIV is that you got it and you died. So when I got my diagnosis, I wasn't expecting to be HIV positive. I immediately just thought, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Nobody's ever gonna want me, and I'm never gonna have kids, and woe is me. Lo and behold, I did access some support services for women. And then I began to learn about, treatment, and pretty soon I wasn't going to die. And so here I am now, many years later.
When I was diagnosed, I didn't know anybody. Like, no one had ever told me that they were living with the virus. And so I was the first person that I knew that had it. But I know that my life has continued, and I had to make a choice that day. And I told my family the day that I found out. I traveled to my hometown and I told them, because I wanted them to look into my eyes and see that I was okay, and that I was going to be okay, and it was important to me.
Well, it's also, for a lot of folks, it's not necessarily, the worst thing that can happen in life. Thank God I was diagnosed at a time when, new medications were coming out. So I've never had AIDS. I've always only been HIV positive.
The thing that drove me to get tested was that I had I come up in an era where post-AIDS and HIV, so I had a chance to see HIV and AIDS really manifest itself in horrible ways. So it's like, if you got tested and you were positive, then you had AIDS, or you're going to get AIDS like next week or something along that line. So I was horrified that I was going to die one of these horrible deaths. And I focused on that for a long period of time. I didn't tell anyone that I had gotten tested. I didn't tell anyone what my results were.
That's one thing that I've learned, even though that I'm still considered newly diagnosed, is how I'm so thankful for long-term survivors, and for people that have kind of experienced this chronic illness and lived and kind of, you guys have gone through the hardest part of this epidemic, and you've made it easier for me. And so I'm just so thankful for hearing those experiences and what other people have lived through, and those that have passed on. But what that period of time luckily I've never known the hardest part of the epidemic. I don't know anybody that has died of HIV. And so I think that as I continue to get older in my diagnosis, I just become even more kind of focused on wanting to make sure that long-term survivors are not forgotten, and that we are doing everything we need to do to kind of help people age well with HIV, and also help prevent it.
What HIV was versus what it is today. And I talk a lot about educating people and letting them know that, hey, it's not the same now as it was then as far as the medication and the therapy that's available. So the problem with that is that if I tell you that, we got this great pill, you take it once a day and you're fine, you kind of feel like, oh, well, if you stop taking your blood pressure medication for a few months, you can start back on a blood pressure medication, we can get your blood pressure back down. And not so much with the HIV, because of things like resistance. Are you familiar with the resistance kind of at all?
I know a lot about it. It hasn't necessarily happened to me personally, but I know that with certain classes of drugs, if you become resistant to one product in that class, it can have cross resistance to others. If you don't adhere to your regimen, occasionally I'm guilty. I've missed a dose, but I take it as soon as I remember.
I feel like you need to keep on your medications, because is it true that the virus can mutate if you kind of stop and start your medications, or is that how it works?
How resistance works is if you come in, you start taking a medication, you take it for say a month, right? And you get to what we call a steady state level where the medication is in your system. It is now fighting the virus. If you were to stop taking the medication for a month, the medication would still be in your system, but it would drop to what we would call a subtherapeutic level, where it's still there, but it's not at a high enough level that it can actually sort of fight the virus. Because viruses are viruses and they're sneaky, but it can become very scary very quickly if we no longer have medications that work because your virus is mutated.
Having a resource like the Walgreens app available, where you can just kind of tune in and check in, and you as a pharmacist can not only answer a question but also offer that support that might be needed for that individual to stay adherent and stay safe and take care of themselves, and tell them a funny joke or something, because it could make somebody's day.
The pharmacists have always been the ones for me who have said, hey, do you know about this coupon from the manufacturer? We can get you this. Your medications are either free or reduced. It's always been the pharmacists who have, educated me about the options.
So it just sort of feels like the skill set, I guess, maybe I would say, or the things that you have to do are different than what people understand. Typically, people think a pharmacist basically sits there, counts tablets, but people understanding that as a team, you're there to really help us as patients. So get up, I guess, the courage, the trust.
When I was diagnosed, I didn't know anybody. Now I know a whole bunch of people. I didn't know a pharmacist. Now I know a whole team of health providers. To not be a victim of your circumstance, but to really stand up and become empowered and your biggest advocate, and saying that your health now matters even more than it has. And if it didn't matter then, it really matters, or should matter now.
Absolutely. I completely echo all of those statements. And, I really, really appreciate the time that we were able to spend today talking about this. And, I'm glad that you guys are doing great, and that you guys are getting, great service from your pharmacists and pharmacies. And it makes me feel good, because I don't get to spend this much time with my patients. Normally it's more like a 10 or 15 minutes type of deal. And I am that pharmacist that will hold your hand or give you a hug.
Thank you so much for everything today. Thanks for speaking with us.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you. This has been fun. Let's do it again.
Take care. All right.
It's been a privilege and a pleasure to speak with you all today. We really appreciate the time that you spent, and we appreciate anyone who's sort of tuned in to watch this video. We hope that it's been informative, educational, and would really let you know that Walgreens as a company and individual pharmacists like myself, because there's tons of us out there, we're really here to support you through whatever phase of this disease or for a family or a friend that they're going through.